Welcome everybody to today's episode of the PIXL Drone Show, the podcast where we talk to industry professionals about how they utilize their drones in their space. Our hosts are Kara Murphy, Haye Kesteloo, and myself, Greg Reverdiau. Please be sure to like, subscribe to our show, and share it with your friends. And today we have two very special guests who have been very instrumental to the success of their drone programs in Texas. Coitt Kessler is the program manager for the robotics emergency deployment. It's called a Red Team with the Austin Fire Department. And then our second guest is Adam Johnson, and he's the division chief for the Austin Travis County EMS, and he's also the program manager for the Spartan UAS team. And we're going to talk about this in a second, and he's going to explain to us what it is. We often talk about how successful Texas has been at integrating the drones in their public safety program. So I wanted to bring both of these guests together. I've seen them talking at different industry events and conferences across the country, and it's always a treat to have them to talk about public safety. So Coitt, Adam, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Greg. Team, we really appreciate being here.
Yeah, you guys are the what I call the embodiment of teamwork. When I see what you guys do and how you work together, I think it sets an example for the rest of the country and what the country should follow. So let's go back a little bit in time, and maybe we'll start with Coitt. Take us back, and what is the first time that you saw drones and you thought, hey, this is something that we need to use for the fire department?
Okay, not an exciting story, unfortunately. I wish I could just throw something really cool at you. But so our program's been in existence now we're going on 8 years. And if you go back 8 years ago, there's been a lot of changes obviously with the technology and the understanding of what the technology can do. When we started, it was really scary. Drones was a dirty word. Like, our team did not use the words drones. We were unmanned system. We were robotics. And if you look at our name, it's specific. It's robotics. We were using advanced technologies such as UAS and robotics to be able to mitigate our emergency responses, right? So using technology to help us, not using drones to do our job. And again, we did that very intentionally, because 8 years ago, again, totally different landscape for all of us. 8 years ago, there were a lot of people that were flying around with Phantom 1s with GoPros. And we had individuals from the racing community that were running FPV with GoPros. So if you looked at the YouTube videos 8 years ago, you would see some really cool stuff that didn't involve public safety at that time. It usually had some really great music in the background and some really beautiful aerial shots. And it just, by watching those images, it just made sense that what we were doing in public safety we really could be empowered and enabled by this technology. Fast forward a little bit, and you get to a fire that I was involved with. I guess it was a large fire that we lost 1,650 homes in Bastrop, and which is my hometown. And I wish that I had known about this technology at that time. It just made sense. We had aerial assets that were going over the top of us, that were dropping water, that were trying to keep an eye on where everybody was at, but it wasn't something that we had. I could say then we got into watching YouTube videos, and it just seemed like a perfect pairing of technology with use cases. And we said, well, why don't we look at this with the fire service, and why aren't we doing this in the Austin Fire Department? The city of Austin, we're really lucky, as Adam I'm sure will bring up, is we're known to be very progressive in not only our own organizations, but within the city as a whole, using technology. So it seemed like a perfect way to take a tool we knew that was coming. If the military has it, then we're going to get it. And that's just the way it works. So taking that technology and then figuring out a good way to use it to protect our people and the communities that we serve. And that's really how it started. But when we began, and we're still today, we have a robotics program. So it's air, ground, and maritime response. So water robots, ground robots, and the use of aerial resources.
Yeah, and I want to talk more about this in a few questions about the other devices that you use. And Adam, what about you? How did that come up with the EMS?
Yeah, so we're a much newer program than AFD. We've only been in existence about 9 months now, um, and we saw a lot of the same things, right? We were able to utilize some of the feeds that we were getting from UAS in command posts during civil unrest that we had last summer, and being able to see firsthand and use that intel um, to make tactical decisions on the ground about where we're staging assets and what we can do to keep our responders safe and to keep the community safe is really what sort of ignited for us the desire to investigate more into UAS. One of the things that we felt like was really important is getting these out, getting the drones out on frontline assets. So our plan going into this was to train some of our supervisors, we call them commanders, to train them as pilots, and then to staff those command units with UAS, particularly with thermal equipped UAS that we could use for search and rescue at night in some of our wilderness areas and places that we go to do the search and rescue work. So we very much benefited from all the work that Coitt and the Austin Fire Department had done over the last 8 years, and folks like Jason Day at Texas DPS, and we'll talk more about the public safety unmanned response team, I'm sure, but just this whole community it's still growing, but the ability to come alongside all these folks, learn from their experience, and grow our program very quickly into what it is now, 9 months later.
Adam, let's talk about Spartan. You're the program manager. Can you tell us more about it?
Sure. So Spartan is an acronym that our public information office came up with. So our guys that deal with the media and are very media savvy. It's an acronym that stands for Special Projects, Aerial Reconnaissance, Transport Aid, and Navigation. So it kind of sums up what we're doing now and where we want to be in the future. Um, it's a public safety UAS program. We are all we do currently is unmanned aerial systems. And like I said, we've got two frontline command districts now that have aircraft. We're at 22 remote pilots, and growing. We're going to do another flight academy, training academy for qualification in about 2 weeks, which will take us up to 28 pilots. So that, in a nutshell, that's our program.
Maybe an interesting follow-up question for you, Adam. I mean, since your program's been relatively young, 9 months, what are some of the challenges that you have faced in developing and building that program? And also, how does that compare with Coitt's program that's been up and running for 8 years? Because that's a much longer time span, obviously.
Yeah, so I think we actually share some of the same challenges right now, with things like executive sponsorship. My department was very supportive of the UAS program, but we're still working on building a budget, dealing with having that consistent annual funding and the ability to continue to grow. Um, like I said, we leaned really heavily on Coitt and the other programs in the area that really helped us overcome a lot of those initial challenges of setting up policy and procedure, establishing a training program, getting curriculum, and defining what our mission scope is going to be. Um, we were very blessed to have the PCERT program and the training curriculum that everyone over the last 8 years has been putting together. So that's probably our biggest challenge right now, just across the industry that it impacts us and everyone is the higher level sponsorship. We have very robust programs like the USAR task forces that are FEMA sponsored, and we've got programs in the state that deal with emergency medical response and deal with fire response. But many of those programs don't recognize UAS formally. So trying to grow from a local to a regional to a statewide and even a federal response, and then all the challenges that come with that of standardizing training and qualifications and credentials, so that we can all interoperate and work together.
So you mentioned the training earlier, and you saying you have a new academy going on. I know it's a 5-day training event cycle that you have set up. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you kind of came up with this program? Why did you want to do this over 5 days rather than maybe several days at a time? And then also, what do you do during these 5 days? And that's a question for both of you, so you can split your answers.
Sure. Coitt, you want to?
Yeah, I'll start.
Start?
Yeah, I'll lead out. We realized early on that whatever the state of Texas does, whatever the state of anywhere does, is what wins. Ultimately, for us, if the Department of Public Safety, Department of the Division of Emergency Management, the governing authority over our state will win. Like that's just it's how it works here, and we've seen it over and over again. In that we deal with more disasters here in the state of Texas, unfortunately, than everybody else in the United States. Like we just take the lead there because we have the coastline, because we get the fires, because we have the tornadoes. We have just a lot of things that happen to us. So we're very proud of our emergency management program. But because of that, we're also very familiar with it. And we understand that what they say is what we will end up doing eventually. So why fight that? Why not come together early as a team, knock off the proprietorship, knock off the egos, get rid of, hey, my program is better than your program. If you're training, you're doing a great thing. If you're trying to help people, you're doing a great thing. So if we keep that and get rid of the egos, as mentioned, and we realized if we do what the state does, and we were fortunate in that we started early enough with this that we helped develop the program. So Texas DPS, they've got a very successful program with 200 pilots, 200 aircraft, and growing rapidly. They use aircraft day and night, 7 days of the week, and they have a 1-week program. Well, ding, 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 ding. That makes sense. It's really easy for an organization to release somebody for 1 week. If you try to release somebody for 2 weeks, organizationally, it's tough. You got to put them up through the weekend, right? There's just a lot that goes into that. 1 week makes sense. It's just it's with our tempo and the way that we operate, that just fell in line. And again, that's what DPS does. DPS has both daytime and nighttime classes. Ding, 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 ding. Makes sense. We fly in daytime and nighttime. So we haven't, rather than fight it, we have gone in as a team and said, hey, listen, DPS, whatever you're doing, we want to help build it and we want to be a part of it. And then we want to take that back to our little community here in the city of Austin and in the region, and then expand that throughout the state. And as Adam mentioned, we use the term public safety unmanned response teams, or PSERT teams. And that's all it is. It's just the state curriculum that we have being expanded out. And Adam can talk more about the specifics of our class, but I just wanted to say that, man, DPS in the state's done such a great job with moving this ball forward, and we're all on the same team together. And that's really paid off during operations, and I hope we can get into that like the last summer with the civil unrest. But Adam, do you want to talk about details of the class itself?
Yeah, sure. I can go through that. So for our program, we start by requiring all the pilots to be Part 107 certified prior to coming into the program. We use Greg's online training, which has been fantastic, to get our folks ready to take that test. Shameless plug there. And then they come into the flight academy, the RPIC Academy. Like you said, Greg, it's a 5-day academy. It's about 45 hours. We start with sort of the crawl, walk, run mentality of we're going to do some just basic review of kind of ground school and some basic flight maneuver work using some of the maneuvers from your program in the maneuvers workbook. That's day one, and then day two we come in and cover the software. So we've got all the different platforms of software for the manufacturers, plus everything that we're using, like a loft to do Lance requests and weather monitoring, and then we use DroneSense is what we use for most of our public safety missions here, which allows us to be kind of cross-platform and share telemetry and do live streaming. So we spend the morning of day two covering software, and then we start working on scenarios. And we probably spend about 75% of the time doing flight scenarios. Again, it's kind of that crawl, walk, run. So we start with relatively easy scenarios and on day two, and then we move into some more challenging scenarios, just where we're going to have to get the aircraft a little closer to some of the obstructions in terrain, and start doing things like adjusting the exposures to be able to see into a dark area as we're trying to search for someone. Or for us at our program, day three is where we also start night operations. So we'll run a series of night scenarios, again, that are relatively easy. And then day four, we actually go out to Reveille Peak Ranch, which is where we met Greg at the Public Safety Summit. And we spend a long day out there. It's about a 16-hour day where we run 9 scenarios, 3 day scenarios, and then 3 night scenarios that we set up to be as realistic as we can. So search and rescue, flying in, it's just pitch black out there. So, having to use the thermals to maintain any visual perspective on the ground, and going out and running with live actors and putting them through the paces of what they're going to have to do on a real world incident. The last day for us is kind of a half day. We spend, because we're out so late in Burnett. The last day we come in the afternoon. We utilize the NIST basic proficiency course, as that's sort of our one of our credentialing and qualification processes. So we put them through the NIST course, and then finish off with just a little more scenario work, doing some indoor flights and all the challenges that come with that. So that's our 45-day, our 45-hour, 5-day initial training. And then on top of that, we do monthly continuing education, where both Austin Fire and Austin EMS, we team up, and our teams will go out and fly scenario missions together. We're doing that like tonight. We'll be in downtown doing some scenario work with evening and sort of civil twilight flight in the downtown area, and all the challenges that come with flying in an urban area with radio interference and things like that.
Wow, that's awesome.
I just add to this real quick. This is our team last night. We have 3 days of CE, so we have a B, and C shift, right? Alpha, Bravo, Charlie. It's just the way the rotations work with our schedules. So we have this 3 days, as Adam mentioned, that we call CEs. And every month we get together and it's for a couple hours. We make sure that our pilots are up to date on the latest software. They're up to date with managing their aircraft, operating as a team. So that's the big part here. This is where this changes everything, is when you're starting to talk about working as a team. Because everybody on this call knows that when you're working with a drone, you're looking through a soda straw. Your field of view is not optimal, right? But if you're working with a lot of soda straws, you're working with a whole team that are working with that piece of equipment, now you've got a game. Now you can get in and really work. So last night, we're all flying downtown, as Adam mentioned, doing our scenario-based training. And it was just a thing of beauty to sit back and watch our instructors working with the students and hear that EMS is making the exact same call outs. Hey, spinning up, good props, launching. It just happens over and over again. And so what Adam is doing is working with what we do on at the flight line that we manage, right? And there's no egos. It's just such a beautiful. I mean, I know everybody's smiling and like you get it, and that's what it should be. Like this is the way it should be. We should show up on scene, and if we're running a CPR call, no CPR calls run by themselves. We have a pit crew. We each do something, right? And Adam's group's the folks that's in charge of that. We show up a fire. Nobody puts out a fire by themselves. We all have our different jobs. So I mean, that's the way we run our calls, and this unified teaching program that we have is the key to it all. It's the glue. That and just having, great guys like Adam to work with. I mean, we just have people that care and want to do this. So I think everybody gets it, that's what's behind this.
You've succeeded when that happens.
I got a question, and I'll start with you, Coitt, but Adam, you can chip in, of course, as well. For everybody else listening to this show, and specifically other first responders elsewhere in the country, like what kind of advice would you give them? Like where would they start if they want to start a drone program that ultimately operates like a team and as a machine, as you just described? Like where do people begin?
So step one, right? We're going for step one. You're just out of the box. All right. So find friends. Find friends. Step one. You've got to. You're not gonna. This isn't going to happen if you don't have the buy-in of the bosses. If your executives aren't behind you, it's going to be a fight, right? You have got to figure out how to make a project a program, because those are two different words. Project into a program. Adam said, "Hey, we're trying to get a line item budget." Well, I think everybody in this country is trying to get a line item budget right now because we're trying to take what we all know is coming. What we know industry is saying, hang on tight. We're delivering pizza soon. Like we keep hearing this. Public safety realizes that this is happening. So you got to figure out how to make something from a project to a program. And to do that, you need to have somebody in charge. So I would say that's step two then, right? Step two is find somebody that can be in charge. Find somebody that is not afraid of losing their hair. Find somebody that doesn't mind putting their head into the wall over and over again. And find one person that's really passionate about it, and then go out and find those like-minded people that are in your organization. There are nerds everywhere. Thank goodness. And there are people that want to figure out how to do this. So you align yourself with the right people. You decide how you're going to make this from a project to a program. You make sure that you have the executive team buy-in from the start. Like that's just step one.
So this is all before you get into part 107 and buying drones and all that stuff.
Yeah, because man, it is the good news. And Haye, you just mentioned this. The good news is that we're all talking about what you just said. Hey, what do we have to do now on the regulatory side? Because we know there's the regulatory side. Well, you find the easy button. As Adam mentioned, we use Pilot Institute, right? There are a lot of great programs out there. You find that easy button to press to get you through on the regulatory piece. You find the easy button by communicating and reaching out to folks that have programs, and you get their training. You align yourself nationally with the National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST, because what they're doing, I go right back to, hey, whatever the state does is whatever we're going to do. Well, whatever the feds are doing is what the state's going to be doing, which is what we're going to be doing. So tie in with Adam Jacoff and the team with NIST, because that's all about consistency. That is getting so much closer to developing a lane that the FAA is familiar with manned aviation, right? It's focusing on safety. It's focusing on reproducible training. It's going the right direction. So once you've found your friends locally, find your friends outside your region, And there's a great group, it's called Drone Responders, that has a lot of resources that you can go to find those resources. If you need policies, there are repositories of policies, and that's what Drone Responders is trying to do, is help you find those friends, help you make those connections, right? It is, I think that's kind of how we move this thing forward. But you got to be willing to fight. You got to be willing to get beat up a little bit, because this is not easy in 2021.
Now, you would think that it becomes easier over time, I guess, when more success stories about how drones help to save people's lives get out in the media. But it's funny that you mentioned drone responders. We had Charles Burner on the show 2 weeks ago, I think, and we asked some of the similar questions, like, okay, how do people start a drone program? Adam, is there anything you would want to add to this that might help people as well?
I would just echo what Coitt said. There's such a large and growing community out there that you don't have to do this by yourself. So do exactly what we did, which is reach out and make friends. Use the resources available through drone responders and just through your the folks in your local region to help you get the program started and get it off the ground. Buying the drones is easy. That's the fun part. The work comes with the standard operating procedures and interoperating with the agencies you're going to be responding with, and all the paperwork and the maintenance and all of that.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
This is for either one of you guys, and you probably have a lot of these, but is there a specific event, that you can recall that really highlighted how important drones really are to public safety?
You got one, Adam? You want to throw out? I was going to use the civil unrest.
Sure. Yeah, so was I. Yeah, go ahead.
You go first.
Okay. So for us with civil unrest, that was one of the first times, like I mentioned earlier, that we really were able to use the information and the intelligence that was being produced by the drones, for us at EMS to make tactical decisions. So, Coitt can go into the details of it because his program did a large number of flights down there. It was mainly his folks that we were watching, but the ability for the command post to see what's happening rather than rely on somebody's radio report, or just to see as a situation is unfolding. We were able to do some things with, in the middle of the civil unrest, we've got thousands of people, in downtown Austin, and in the midst of that, not only were there, EMS calls and problems in the protest itself, but we're still running EMS calls around that. So one of the things that was really beneficial for us was if there's a call in the, out on the periphery of one of these protests, that we could actually call up and ask for a drone to go post over that incident. So there was an incident at an intersection about 5 blocks away from a really large protest that was ongoing, and it was a traffic accident. We had an ambulance there and a fire truck and the police department doing their work. We asked for a drone to come sit over that scene and just basically provide overwatch. And as they were sitting there, a group of protesters that had broken off and was marching, doing some violence, throwing rocks and things, approached that. And because we had a drone over the scene, we were able to warn those responders that, hey, you've got a group of about 25 people that are about to turn the corner and walk right into your incident. Which let them, be prepared for that and load the patients up in the ambulance and kind of get out of the area to de-escalate the response before it even happened. So, just there was so much intelligence, so much information coming off those flights, being able to see what's happening on the ground. It changed how we responded.
I'll add to that, and that is, so during the civil unrest, which for us began on May 29th, and ran all throughout the summer and into the fall. We had collectively, and this is where I go back to the word team, collectively, we had over 3,000 flights. So that's 3,000 battery changes. That's a lot. 3,000, that's a big number, over 3,000. And we had, at any one time, at times we had 7 different organizations working, right? So different organizations that are flying through the city. So how does that work? Well, you divide the city, you create zones, you use interoperability channels. So we know that if we're going into somebody else's zone, that we can communicate with them. Can they see our aircraft? Absolutely, because Adam mentioned a software that we use called DroneSense. Well, DroneSense allows us to, like real time, you can see where everybody's at in space, right? So we know that if you're from the state, or you're from the sheriff's office, or you're from the fire department, wherever we're at, that we've got real-time information on your altitude, your space in the world. And then if you have to move into somebody else's zone, then we're able to either do a pass off, where we can call on the radio and just say, hey, listen, we got people that are moving in. We have shots fired. We have a fire. We have just a large group of people moving, and the handoff takes place. Or, hey, we're coming into your zone because we have a group, a fire truck that's coming in, and we need to make sure that they're safe. And that was our job, is to make sure that the responders that were coming in were safe in the environment in which they were working. So it wasn't to spy on anybody. It wasn't to surveil anybody. Our job was to make sure that the people that were coming in to respond had a safe place to operate. And that was it was such a great opportunity to see how what we're talking about today, working as a team, really happens. 3,000 flights, over 3,000 flights. It was great.
That's crazy. You somewhat answered my next question, but how important is that software? You talked several times about having a software to work as a team. I mean, this is what makes you teamwork, right? There's no way around it. How would people operate without having a software like DroneSense that centralizes all the data? Because DroneSense does so much more than help with the people on the ground. You have different layers of access with different types of people that can watch the feed and do all that. Can you talk a little bit more about what the software does?
Yeah, happily. So we can't do our job safely. If you say aviation equals safety, or safety should equal aviation, or safety is in that a word within aviation, and you're unable to see where your partners are at, what they're doing, then it's not safe, period. Mm-hmm. You can take one drone up and go fly on your own. And if that's your job, and a lot of our jobs are that way, if that's your job, you can do that safely by using the native software that comes with the aircraft. But if you're talking about collaboration and interoperability, if you're talking about safety, you have to know where everybody's at. You have to know what they're doing. If you want to be able to take those images and send them back to an incident command post so they can see what's going on, so they have an idea of what's happening, you have to have software that enables that. We're very fortunate in that we're able to use the DroneSense software. And it doesn't only allow Adam and I to work together, but it allows Adam's team, our team, the state team, the folks that live in different parts of our region to all interoperate together. It allows us not only to see drones, but now if you're going to have an ambulance so let's say we have what's called rescue task forces. Okay, so those are UTVs, like four-wheelers, right? UTVs that have a couple police officers, and it usually has a paramedic and a firefighter with them. And their idea is, hey, if there's shots fired, which unfortunately we're getting more and more of, if there are shots fired, then we can rapidly go in and get patients out and take them to the hospital, right? We secure the scene, we take people out. It's rescue task forces. So it's fast to get them in and out. They can't do their job without knowing what they're about to go into. They can't do it well. They can't do it safely. So what we can do is we can actually take their cell phones and use DroneSense on their cell phones, and we can watch them going in real time on their UTV while using their cell phone while we're flying over the top of them, right? So we can visualize the entire scene of what's going on. And we can provide them the overhead view. We can provide the incident commander the overhead view. They can use their cameras on their cell phones or their smart devices to be able to stream that back so we can see what's going on the ground if we need to, or if the incident commander needs to be able to see what's going on. So that's how we collaborate and interoperate. On the backside of it is if any of us had a bad day during those 3,000 flights, if any of us had problems with our aircraft, we would then be able to track exactly where the aircraft was at in space, what it was looking at, what we were doing. So now we offer our community a way to we can provide them information on what we were doing and when we were doing it. So it's again, Haye, you'd asked, like, what do you do when you start a program? These are some of the things that we've had to learn are very important for us, is making sure that we're all safe. And not only our programs are safe, but the people that we're flying over are.
I can add to that just a little bit. That mobile asset tracking is what DroneSense calls it. We're actually working with manned aviation now as well to put most of them have iPads in the aircraft already, but to load this software, and then we can not only track the drones and where they're at in space, but we can also see those manned assets. So Travis County Starflight is a multi-mission helicopter program here. Locally, DPS has aircraft, the Austin Police Department has aircraft. So on a lot of these incidents, we're interoperating not just with other drones, but also with manned aviation. And what DroneSense lets us do is see exactly where those aircraft are at. And it's also beneficial for the manned aviation to be able to see where our drones are at as well.
Question for you, which drones do you fly with your programs?
Yeah, so we're all of our frontline aircraft are Autel Evos. We've got 4 of the Evo 2 duals that have the thermal 640 by 512 FLIR boson, and we've got 3, soon to be 4, of the Evo 2 Pros with it's the 6K 1-inch sensor without thermal. We have a few DJI. We use the Mavic Minis. So prior to our flight academy, we'll issue aircraft to the students so that they can practice some of those basic maneuvers and just get some stick time before they come into the academy. And we use the Mavic Minis are great for that because they're small. They fly very reliably. As you guys know, they're GPS drones, so they fly just like one of the slightly larger drones. But they're inexpensive and very easy to get issued out.
I got a kind of a follow-up question to this, and either one of you, I think, can potentially answer this one. But if you would describe the ultimate drone for first responders, whether it's police departments, fire departments, search and rescue, like what would be some of the main features that you would be looking for?
Adam, you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So, I think it's great to see the technology mature. To me, it's all about the battery life. So the longer the flight time, the fewer times you have to come back and change batteries, the longer you can stay on station. It's about the payload development. So we went with Autel because at the time we were looking to make purchases. It was very important to us to have a thermal sensor, and the fact that they had that 640 by 512 thermal that was in our price range, that was important. So I think multiple payloads, the ability to swap payloads out, and for those sensors to just continue to mature. I also think that the environments that we're flying in public safety aren't, we're not always flying on the blue sky, clear days. So having aircraft that are IP rated for water resistance and to be able to fly in those more challenging weather conditions would be important as well. But to me, it's the aircraft is just the delivery device for that payload. So the payloads are the most important part.
And I would add to that um, so as Adam mentioned, the hardening of the aircraft. When we're talking about hardening, a lot of us talk about just the weatherizing of it, right? Because we are in these really terrible environments, but we're also like downtown Austin that we were talking about flying in. We needed to harden so radio frequencies. When you have several thousand people come through and you're on 2.4 or 5.8, and you're working in a Wi-Fi environment where there's just signals everywhere, now your equipment has some severe challenges. So that hardening, everybody's like, weather hardening. Well, it's probably a little more than that. It's going to be some security pieces there. It's going to be making sure that we're tight. And if we get around on the Charlie side of a high rise, the back side of a high rise, that we still have good connectivity and we're safe, right? So that hardening is super important for us. And we're struggling with, we all love iPads. The iOS experience, that user interface is fantastic until you go outside in the Texas heat, right? Or the California heat or the Utah heat or you name the heat. And then your screen goes black. So not only are we struggling with the experience, the aircraft experiencing issues while being out in space, it's now the operator having to be in an environment that the weather doesn't beat down, and that's hard. That's a lot to unpack there. But if you want public safety, those are things that we need.
Well, flight time, as Adam mentioned, that's one that we've heard from multiple people that we had on our show, which leads me to the next question. Do you guys use tethered drones at all? And if so, in what kind of situations do you see value in those drones?
In what kind of drones? I'm sorry, Haye.
Tethered drones, the ones that are connected to the ground. Yeah, so you always have power and transmission.
I can take the lead on that one. I'm on mute. We have not had any experiences with tethered. We have not used them here within our organization. The power, the indefinite power, the persistence, the endurance is super attractive. But our mobility for us is really important. We have to be able to, as mentioned, we're trying to get over an area to provide situational awareness fast. And unless we're right on top of that area, a tethered system for a lot of these applications is not something that would be something needed. Now, if we're at it, Adam and I work in Austin, Texas. We have a lot of large music venues, right? We have a lot of big. That might be a spot that would be fantastic because those batteries are a huge issue for us. But we just haven't found the application. Now, being able to tether and unplug, I think that's a winning combination.
Best of both worlds, perhaps. There.
Correct.
Yep.
And there was a drone in Texas at the show where you guys were as well that did that. Yeah, you could unplug it in flight and then go fly if you wanted to, which was pretty cool, I thought.
Yeah, I think that's Evolve Dynamics.
Yeah,
I think are the
Evolve,
guys
yep.
that put those out from the UK. Yeah, very interesting concept, and yeah, it's perfect. You can stay
We'd
tethered.
love a trial.
Yeah, we would love a trial.
We talk about drones obviously because this is what we do, but Coitt, your team, the red team, is a robotics team, which means that you also fly or you also pilot other types of devices. Can you tell us what else is in your fleet that is not a UAS?
Sure. So we have, as I mentioned, ground and maritime. Now, the ground was given to us through the government. We have what are called micro tactical ground robots, MTIGers. Micro tactical ground robots. We have two of them, and they were transferred from the government over to us. And they have an amazing communications package. They use persistent systems. It's a very high quality military application. communication system within it, and it is amazing for being able to run into tunnels, to be able to get into hazardous material events, to be able to push somewhere where a human can't fit or you wouldn't want a human. Downside is when you get things from the military, the repairs on those systems are very expensive, right? When the contract runs out, you don't have a warranty any longer, it's not good. And our micro tactical ground robots currently are out of operation because we just don't have the funding to be able to keep them up. So that would be our ground. Our water-based solutions, we have two, and they were provided through the government as well. And the company that created this solutions is Hydronaulics. Hydronaulics has a really awesome program. It's called, or a piece of equipment. It's called the Emily, and the Emily is like 4 feet long, it's 25 pounds. It runs us off of a remote control that you would use like race cars with. I mean, it's a throttle and right and left. And our Emily's, we have two of them. One is used for swift water applications, so be able to throw into a moving water, and you attach a line to the back of it. We have 400 feet of poly line, and you can run out to make a save or rescue or get a rope bag out to somebody. And I think you're probably gonna have a lot of first responders on here that understand that when you throw a rope bag out to somebody in the water, if you don't hit them right, the water takes the bag downstream. Well, if you have an Emily with a line on it, you have a way to be able to get a very buoyant flotation device to a victim or get a rope that you can then bring them back in. So that's one of the boats. The other boat has a side scan sonar. Side scan sonar, just think fish finder, people finder, car finder, evidence finder. The side scan sonar works really well. So now what we can do is we can put a drone overhead. So let's say Adam and I work in Austin, water all over the place. You have a person that goes into Town Lake, the lake that runs through Austin, and somebody goes in and you need to find out where they're at. The drone can run downstream super fast. So we can determine if the person has gone downstream. The boat can now run laps through the water, and we can determine if the person is still submerged. Now we're able to focus our efforts and have the machines team, right? We're always talking about team with manned aircraft, teaming with other machines. So the use of these two different technologies works really well together.
Thank you for sharing. I think it's cool having all these different types of technology. Sorry, Kara, go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. It is definitely cool. So you mentioned that you use a lot of OTEL drones. What is your opinion on geofencing?
We that really didn't factor into our decision to go with OTEL over DJI or any of the other manufacturers. We certainly like the fact that we can quickly get aircraft up. That they rely on the pilots to know where you can and where you can't fly and to get the authorization. So that was we like that, but we also are participate in the QEP program through DJI where we can unlock our aircraft and be able to fly. So for us, the choice to go with Autel didn't have a lot to do with the no-fly zone. It really had to do with the payloads that they had with the thermal. And the thing that we enjoy most right now about Autel is the customer service. They're a smaller company, and we've had really good experience with their customer service. They take care of us.
That's good to hear.
Yeah. Question for either one of you. Twofold question as well. Texas is at the forefront of using drones for first responders and emergency. Can you help us understand why Texas is so much advanced compared to other states? And then the second part of this question is, what other states in the United States do you see that are very envelope pushing or groundbreaking when it comes to using drones as well?
Adam, you mind if I jump in on that one?
Yeah, go ahead.
So going back to the original statement is we just get hit with more disasters than anybody else. So the more you practice, the more you play, the more you work, right? So we're very fortunate that we have a lot of people that get to practice and work. We have a very friendly state too. We like to work together, and so when you're looking at Adam and I right now, but there's another Adam and Coitt up in North Texas, and over on the Gulf Coast, and down south, and we have these different groups, the public safety unmanned response teams, that can all operate off the same handbook, right? Off the same training. They can operate off the same best practices. We're waiting, and this is the problem, is we don't have any executive direction or leader's intent from the state. That's what we are really, everybody needs that. We need somebody from the legislative side to say, hey, listen, we understand that there are a lot of people out there flying drones. Now let's do this together. And we've done everything we've done is what you've seen here with Adam and I. It's just because it's the right thing to do. And we have a lot of people throughout the state that are doing that because it's the right thing to do. They're all over the state, and they want to show up on game day and be able to perform. I think Florida, I know Florida is crushing it because they have a lot of disasters, right? California, crushing it. They have a lot of disasters. We're tied in at international level or national and international levels. Our peers are there. My great friend Mike Liu up in FDNY, man, you look at the city, everybody, wow, what is the city doing? Because they have so many people. They have disasters there all the time. So there are groups at a national level, just based on the unfortunate reality is that we have to respond to these tragic events over and over and over again. So a lot of us are trying to figure out creative ways of making that happen.
That makes sense. I mean, it's an unfortunate truth, but it makes sense that the states where the most disasters and natural events occur, that drones will be used there more often. Is there any state where you see that you do have that support at the state level at all, or no, not yet?
None. No.
Unfortunate. No. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. We wrote a House bill here a couple years ago, and it unfortunately the state of Texas dealt with snowpocalypse, right? The entire state shut down because of the snow. We had COVID. We had the civil unrest. So when our House bill went forward, which was actually to help make this happen for the public safety unmanned response teams, it didn't have any traction. And I don't know that there's any other states that have actually pushed forward a legislative piece like that. We're hoping next session that we'll have some attention.
This is a good segment to my next question, talking about regulation. Remote IDs around the corner, and if you had a magic wand and you were able to get to the FAA and said, here's one change that we really want to make, what would be that change that is currently limiting your operation?
Adam?
Yeah, so I would say for us, it's probably the beyond visual line of sight, and they have made changes, and I think that's going to continue to evolve. So for us, it's the tactical beyond visual line of sight. We haven't started the process yet of getting the waiver, but I think the combination of that and where the industry is going to go with autonomous and semi-autonomous flight will also be a game changer for us in public safety. The ability to have an autonomous drone that can go out and deliver like a external defibrillator, one of the AEDs, to a cardiac arrest victim before we can get a ground response there. Pushing that regulation forward and what's going to happen with all of the delivery services and everything there, I think is going to be our next evolution. Will be having the drone in a box type situation where it can fly autonomously and either deliver equipment or go fly to an incident and provide that intel very quickly.
And I know the FAA is working on those two things that you mentioned, the BV loss, making it more routine, and then obviously the delivery. And we've been hearing this from other people as well, the BV loss thing and the waiver. What about you, Coitt?
Standardization. We need standardization. It doesn't have to be the public safety unmanned response teams, right? But the concept of that, of working together to mirror manned aviation, is what we need. We have the people, we have the equipment. We're poised and we're eager to work together as a team, but we can't do that without executive direction and leaders' intent. We're doing this from the bottom up, wrong direction. We need standardization. We need to say, hey, listen, this, not only you have Part 107, which is a great beginning to this, but it's not the end all. It is a very important step one. Now step two, now step three, just like manned aviation, you've got ground and you've got your hands-on training. That's standardization is what we need. And I think that we have a great track record. We're doing what's right. We just need the people that we answer to step in and take care of us.
Makes sense.
So have you guys seen the new Parrot Anify drone? It resembles an insect, or they modeled the design after it, but it connects with 4G. And is that a feature that's important to you? How is the transmission range and quality on your current drones, and would having 4G connectivity make a difference?
Adam, communications.
So I mean, I think the radio interference and the problems that we have with Wi-Fi and the congestion and those bands, that 4G makes sense. What we're dealing with on most of our flights, with maintaining visual line of sight, we've outside of the really dense RF environments like downtown Austin. We don't have a lot of connectivity problems if we're out flying a search and rescue mission. I think that, obviously as autonomy and semi-autonomous flight comes in, that 4G and 5G is going to be important. But we're actually okay with where we're at most of the time with our current radios on the Altels.
Cool. I got a question. I want to bring it back to remote ID. Now that remote ID is published, how will this affect your departments, and how will it affect your ability to fly drones? And do you see remote ID as something that's going to be helpful for first responders, or is it a pain in the neck somehow?
That's a great question. We're waiting to see how it's going to affect us. We don't know yet. I know, Greg, your synopsis to help us understand the remote ID, to pare it all down. Bless you for taking all that and breaking it down to the Reader's Digest version for us all. I think it remains to be seen. What is important, and then we do recognize this for interoperability on public safety, going back to what we're talking about with DroneSense, if we don't know where everybody's at, we got problems. When we were flying downtown, there were days where we had drones coming in and coming at us. We had our drones, and then we had non-participating drones, and we didn't know where they were coming from. Every once in a while, we'd see somebody pull a Mavic out of a backpack on a skateboard and throw something up and then skate off. And we didn't understand who and where and what we were working with. So when we're talking about wildfires and hurricane response and floods and trying to understand who's on what team and where everybody's at, I think that's going to be very important for us. It's manned aircraft they have to know who's in the space and what's going on. I just don't know that I don't have don't think we have I'm not really sure that where we're at right now is going to work. We're waiting to see. I don't have anything smart to say other than we need to know who is in the airspace.
So the need is there to know who's flying and where they are. How it's going to work in real life, I guess, is something that we're all anxious to wait and see.
Yeah, it's critical that we know who's up there. It's critical.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people. Yeah, we're getting to the last question. I wanted to add, I think it's an angle that we don't hear all the time. There's a lot of critique about remote ID, and I know I've been critical of some of the components of remote ID, but we don't always see the public safety side of things. And when you guys operate, needing to know what's around. So I'm glad you mentioned that. I think it's a different perspective that is not. That doesn't come up very often, but I want to be mindful of your time. I know we're getting close to an hour here. What is, and this is a question that we ask all of our guests at the very end, what is your favorite drone to fly? And it doesn't have to be for a job, or if you have a personal drone that you really enjoy. So go for it, Coitt.
Man, I would say currently the Autel Evo is my favorite. I didn't get an answer earlier on what our fleet is. We have a mixed fleet of DJI and Autel. We're DJI. It's gray or orange in our trucks. So I would say I've really enjoyed the Autel Evo 2. That's what I've really just like. It's just been it's just worked really well for us. I love DJI. I mean, I'm not. You asked me to pick one, which is really hard. But just for what we do and ease of use and to make it, the experience has just worked out really well for us with that. But I opposite of Adam, we have many more DJI than we have Autels. We're just the opposite. We're really doing well with those two companies right now. And I beg industry to look at what those companies are doing and emulate and then pass them. We need competition. We need help. We've got to be able to push this thing forward. Adam?
What about you, Adam?
Yeah, so I think for me, it's the Autel as well. Although I have been toying with DJI FPV on the personal side, which is also a lot of fun. But I'm still an Autel fan.
Awesome.
Quick follow up, Adam. You mentioned that customer support from Autel was good. How important is customer support from a drone manufacturer for first responders?
I think it's crucial. We have a very limited supply of aircraft, so when something happens, the ability to resolve whatever that problem is quickly can literally be the difference of us having an aircraft out on an apparatus or not. So it's very important to us to have good customer service.
Hey, hi. I'm just going to tag on to that. Customer service with the aircraft, but customer service with your software provider as well. That's, when you ask, like, what do you recommend? Like, there's all kinds of things to build a program, but we need easy buttons. Adam, we got EMS and fire here. We all have regular day jobs that we do. So we have to have subject matter experts that are there, that will pick up the phone and understand our problems, and that really care about what we're doing, because we have day jobs. This is not our full-time jobs for most people. And that's, customer service is something everybody in the industry should be paying attention to, especially for public safety.
Cool, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, we have so many questions. We may have to bring you guys back in a couple of months to talk some more about this. As always, thank you so much to both of you. It's always such a pleasure to talk. And I know Coitt and Adam, we've sat down around the fire in Texas, and we talked for hours and hours about the good things that are going on. So I look forward to more of these. For those that are listening, if you enjoy what you're listening, please give us a like, leave a comment for our guest, and we always like to interact and answer answer your questions. And then also subscribe if you're watching us on YouTube. And I think this is going to be the end of the show. Gentlemen, I appreciate your time. And I know, Adam, you're getting ready to go do some training, so enjoy that.
Thank y'all so much. Thank you so much for the opportunity, guys. We're looking forward to the next one.